Happy post-holidays, Jets fans. Winnipeg is finally back in action this evening against the Chicago Blackhawks, and it shouldn't be a crazy difficult game, but you never know. We'll talk about what to expect from the pesky Hawks on tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets.
You're Locked On the Hockey Jets, your daily podcast on the Winnipeg Jets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Evening, Jets fans, and welcome to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Harrison Lee, an avid Winnipeg Jets fan and an online blogger. You can follow me on Twitter at HLLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. As always, thanks for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day, every day. If you like what you're hearing, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe on all of your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. Doing so, of course, is always free of charge and ensures you never miss another episode. Most of all, we just love and appreciate your support. Tonight's episode is brought to you by GameTime. Download the GameTime app and be sure to use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase when you make a brand new account. Of course, stay tuned to hear more about how GameTime can save you time and money buying your favorite event tickets. Now, like I said, the Jets... Obviously, this evening, they are back in action against the Chicago Blackhawks. And, Winnipeg right now is riding on a pretty good high. 20 wins on the season, just beat the Boston Bruins, had the nice Christmas break, and things are looking up. So this game, one thing I'm looking for, right, I guess the main thing, aside from the win, is to kind of see how the Jets are after a long break. Are they going to be rusty? Are they going to be up for it? What is their mindset? In previous years, we've seen the Jets have several days off, and then they come back and they don't quite look as sharp as you would normally expect, which is very much what you do expect, right? A bit of rust, maybe some, slow starts. That's the kind of stuff that's going to happen, especially after holiday travel, a holiday break, some time off. It does take a little bit to get back into skating shape and get your legs moving. So I think Winnipeg in this game might have a bit of a slower start, which I think the Jets are going to want to be careful with because, Chicago is a very bad team, make no mistake. But by the same token, Hawks are hungry for a win. They want to show teams and each other that they're serious about this and that they want to put on as good of a show as they can. So the Jets really don't want to let Chicago run away with this early. I think obviously this is going to be a solid Jets win. I think Winnipeg will probably win something like 4-2 or whatever. I forget what I last predicted, but we'll say 4-2 for now. I think makes a lot of sense. I think the Jets will have, maybe a rougher first period where they look a little bit disorganized, maybe a little bit slower. And then, as the game wears on, they'll get their skating legs back and start to take over. It's not like they're really facing a particularly dangerous team, though. You look at the lineup and you've got Foligno, Bedard, and Kurashev on the first line. And obviously the only guy that you're really worried about there is Bedard. Now, I say the only guy that you're worried about, but make no mistake, Bedard is kind of good enough to be like three players. We've seen his first goal against the Jets, probably the first of many goals down the road. We know how good Bedard is. I mean, this dude scored a Michigan on his backhand the other day. This kid is supremely gifted, and he will be the only real scoring threat that stands out immediately. That's not to say, though, that this Hawks team doesn't have a couple of guys who can be a bit of a pest. On the second line, you've got Beauvillier, Dickinson, and Radish. And in particular, Beauvillier used to have a pretty nice finish. These days, he's not really doing a lot offensively. And with this Hawks team struggling to make zone exits and stuff, I don't know that he'll be a particularly big factor, but he's one of those guys where if he does find a soft area on the ice in front of either Hellebuck or Brossoit, this would not be a time for the Jets to get themselves into trouble, right? Don't offer easy lanes to the net. Keep it clear, shut down that slot area, and force Chicago to work. Third line, you've got Donato, Johnson, and Blackwell. Johnson, I think, would, for me, be probably the most dangerous player there. Blackwell, of course, had that good run with the Rangers for a bit, and has generally, since then, been kind of quiet. Donato, journeyman third liner. At this point, he's been all over, multiple teams. And at this point, he's just kind of, entered a checking role with this Hawk squad. And then on the fourth line, you've got Reichel, Entwistle, and Johnson. Obviously, not a lot here to be concerned about. I think the blue line is probably where the Jets will really feast because there's a lot of size there, but it's not particularly skilled size, right? You're not talking about lots of guys who are able to move the puck effectively. You've got Vlasic and Murphy on the first pairing, Tenorti and Phillips on the second, and then Korchinski and Zaitsev on the third. The third pairing might honestly be better than the second, although that's not really saying a lot. Korchinski is obviously a work in progress and should be very good down the road, but as it is right now, the Hawks are kind of at the point where they're still rebuilding, and young rookies like this are just slowly getting back into game shape. So in net, you've got either Mrazek or Soderblom. I don't know that there's really a big difference for me between those two. Both goalies are guys that I think the Jets can probably take apart. So, Winnipeg, as long as they show up in this game and, are able to muster maybe half to, 40 minutes, I think Winnipeg should be in a good spot. I think the Jets can come away with a pretty comfortable win. In terms of, first games back, this is probably about as generous as the Jets could expect. A softer opponent towards the bottom of the division, not like walking into Minnesota, because the Jets are going to have to do that later this coming week. They're going to have a home against Minnesota, which is going to be a tough stretch of games. But the Jets should be hopefully prepared for it. This game against the Hawks will be a quick way to get back into shape, kind of shake off the cookie rust. We'll see how, the milk and cookies that these players have probably been imbibing over the last few days, whether it slows them down or not, or if they're going to be good to go. So hopefully the Jets come away with a big win. I'm predicting, like I said, a 4-2 win. Drop your predictions in the comments below. Now, of course, the Jets aren't the only ones in action. A lot of you are probably watching the World Juniors. I've been following more off to the side. Obviously, holiday travel hasn't really been favorable to me watching a lot of hockey over the past few days. So we've had some early reports. We'll talk about, maybe some funny observations early on from a couple of Jets prospects who are there, one of whom is now suspended for a game. We'll talk about who that is and what happened in just a little bit. But before we go any further, I did want to shout out our friends and partners at GameTime. When it comes to buying concert tickets and event tickets, you all know how difficult it can be. It takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money. And best of all, you often find that you get hit with lots of service charges. Who is, excited to pay even more for that ticket? That $50 ticket starts looking more like a $75 surcharge. Yeah, no one does, right? We all hate that. And GameTime knows exactly what, that pain point is like. They've all bought tickets from other services before, I'm sure. And they want to try and, take away some of the stress and help save you time and money. They want to really make sure that your holidays, whether you're going to maybe an event sometime within the next week or so, or you're buying, presents for a future event, they want to make sure that you're going to have a good time and, save a few extra bucks because the holidays can be real expensive. GameTime offers you last-minute ticket deals, flash deals, zone deals, and so much more. They also offer in-venue views from your seat so you know what you're actually paying for. Or perhaps you're buying a gift for somebody and you don't want to put them behind a giant pillar, right? You don't want to block their view because that kind of stuff sucks. GameTime, again, wants to make it as easy as possible with their fantastic app, and they come with lowest price guarantees and event cancellation protection. So if you are tired of wasting time and money and you want to take the guesswork out of buying tickets, go with GameTime. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and be sure to use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download GameTime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Hello, friends, and welcome back to this episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for rejoining us on tonight's episode as we preview a little bit of upcoming Winnipeg Jets action against the Chicago Blackhawks later this evening. Road game. It's going to be 9 p.m. start time, my zone, which really sucks. 8 p.m. for all of you Manitobans. Hopefully you don't have to stay up too late tonight to watch what should be a comfortable win. Let's hope that the first line keeps cooking. But of course, like I said before the break, the Jets are not the only hockey team in action. And of course, not even just NHL and pro teams. We've got World Juniors action over the next couple of weeks. And for a lot of you, that's probably one of the most exciting times. Now, the Jets don't have a ton of prospects this year. It's mainly like McGroarty and Salamonson that I think a lot of people are paying attention to. And we'll talk about how that's gone in just a little bit. Before we go any further, though, I want to shout out a really cool thing that the Locked On Network is doing that I thought you should hear about. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with our local experts and our national shows covering every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Now, like I said, the Jets have a couple of prospects at the World Juniors this year. The two big ones that I think anyone really cares about are Elias Salamonson and Rutger McGroarty. Now, for Team USA, they had a pesky Norwegian team, but they ended up beating them like 4-1 or something. I did not get a chance to check this game. Unfortunately, was, like I said, out during travel for vacation stuff. But Team USA got through. Rutger McGroarty was named captain before the start of the game, and he didn't actually record any points, so we'll have to kind of watch back the footage and see how he was. It sounded like a couple of other players, like Gavin Brindley, really stood out for Team USA, but I think for McGroarty, right, you've seen his college numbers. You pretty much know what you're getting with him. I think the biggest question for me is stuff that comes kind of outside of this tournament, right? What will his skating be like when he reaches the pros? After his college season finishes up and after these World Juniors finish up, he really doesn't have a lot of time left before he comes to Winnipeg. So we'll have to kind of see what his skating is like, because mobility is obviously important, right? But it doesn't have to be the be-all, end-all for creative players. We've seen Perfetti do a fantastic job of making use of the skating that he does have and relying really on smart spatial awareness, great positioning, excellent vision, and incredible passing to be a true versatile offensive threat. And honestly, he also just defends really well for a forward, especially a guy often considered undersized. And Perfetti is not even that small. He's actually, pretty decent height. He's just not a big physical player, right? So I think in a lot of ways, McGroarty is going to be a little bit more physical in the corners, although I don't know that he's going to be like a super aggressive forechecker. It'll be interesting to see, though, right? He's a big player. I'm very excited to see what he is like with this Jets team. I do see him as the future captain one day. You just look at his personality, his constant beaming smile, and really, is there anyone else that you could imagine wearing the C down the road? Not for me. I think he looks like, I guess Colby Barlow probably could be one of the other guys, but I don't know. McGroarty just seems like the kind of personality and face of a franchise that you could imagine becoming not only a fan favorite, but also a locker room favorite. So that's fun. Let's hope he has a big tournament. He's got plenty of games left, and he'll be playing tomorrow, so I'm hoping to tune in for that. But on the Team Sweden side, things haven't been nearly as fun. I don't exactly know what the scoreline finished with that game, but unfortunately, the reason I didn't even pay attention was because Elias Salamonson, the guy I would have been interested in watching, he got suspended in like the first minute of the half. Unfortunately, he boarded somebody and got a 5 and a game, of course, which, look, the IIHF takes that stuff pretty seriously. They are, not exactly hesitant to throw you out of a game if they feel a hit was bad. And Salamonson did board and hit from behind pretty badly, definitely deserved to get tossed, and he has now been handed a 1-game suspension, which really sucks. Now, obviously that really is unfortunate, and it would have been nice to watch Salamonson. I think at this point, you basically know what Elias is going to bring to this team. He's got really solid two-way instincts. He's a defensive monster, and he's very strong in skating in transition. So, all of that stuff isn't really going to change because he misses a game or two for the World Juniors, but it just would have been nice to get more of a sense of what he's like with the World Juniors team. Really, when it comes to World Juniors, you're not watching this to evaluate prospects seriously, right? It is fun to talk about World Junior stuff, but these guys are either, playing in more developmental leagues or perhaps in Salamonson's case in the pros. That's where he's really going to, test his mettle. At international knockout tournaments with a bunch of kids, yeah, right? It's not that serious, but it is cool to see him represent his country. And, for Team Sweden, I think he'll be if all goes well and he becomes what we all think he can become, which is like maybe an elite second pairing defender, or perhaps one day a top pairing guy, he could become a cornerstone of that Swedish top four at some point. I really feel like, with the current generation of blue liners for Sweden aging out, Salamanson could become a huge part of that team down the road, especially like the adult national team, if, we eventually get more Olympic hockey, which it will be in the future. I just don't know how far in the future. But, for the Jets, obviously, Salamanson is probably our best overall like defensive prospect. He's kind of going to be one of those guys that I put in the Sandberg tier of player. I think the big thing for me is, will his offensive numbers really pop? Because when it comes to his shot share when he's on the ice, his teams have tended to dominate control of the offensive zone, and he's a good facilitator, good passer. He's got great mobility on the back end, so I'm excited to see what Salamanson can do. We've gotten some glimpses of him in camp before he got returned to Sweden, so it's not going to be long before he comes to North America and gets a chance to fight for a roster spot. So get excited about that, even if he doesn't get a chance to play much in this World Juniors tournament. But if you've had a chance to watch any of our top prospects, give your thoughts below. Maybe you are excited about a few of them. Maybe you're not as thrilled with some of their early showings. Drop your comments and thoughts below, or at my social medias at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. Before we close out for tonight, though, just had one other topic. I thought it would be fun to do maybe a New Year's resolution or two, just some stuff that's kind of similar to what I'm hoping we see maybe on our Christmas wish list, but some of this will be a little bit more tactical, I think. Some stuff that I think the Jets might be able to do internally, especially as we are kind of approaching the halfway point of the season, and Winnipeg is really in cruise control for a playoff spot. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. Before we go any further, though, I did want to shout out our friends and partners at FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. For you Vikings fans, perhaps you feel like that game against Detroit was the impetus for what should be a very competitive last few attempts to try and salvage a playoff run. Obviously, the season has not gone according to Minnesota's plans, but you know what? All they have to do is win one game, and if you get the right game and you predict the right win, you could get $150 with that $5 money line bet, and you can try your luck again. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than right now. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season in style. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Hello, friends, and welcome back to these closing thoughts on tonight's episode of Locked On Winnipeg Jets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Every day, thank you so much for joining us in tonight's episode as we talk about some New Year's resolutions, I guess, for the Jets. Some of this is going to be kind of like silly. It's not going to be all that exciting, but look, I think I have only a couple of real wishes for the Jets this coming season. Some stuff that I think they can change to get more exciting, right? I think one of the biggest things that Garrett Hull and a number of us have talked about on social media with the Jets is that offensively, we're kind of a strange team, right? We don't tend to see the Jets create a lot of elite slot offense, which is really the most dangerous area on the ice. Winnipeg has kind of created lots of stuff more from the perimeter, and so far they are finishing off from the outside and from rebound opportunities like crazy. They've outscored opponents hilariously with the top line, but you start going down the lineup and it's been a little bit more, I would say, inconsistent, right? You're not seeing as much slot penetration, which I think for the Jets would be one of the biggest New Year's resolution asks for me. That would be huge, not only at even strength, but on the power play. And that's kind of why I'm still puzzled as to why Scheifele is not down the middle on the power play. In the slot, there's pretty much no one better on this team at punishing opponents for even just like an inch of space. Scheifele, when it comes to finishing one-time opportunities right in that central space, and with his elite hand-eye coordination, he is an unholy terror. I really feel like that is one of the key cogs that could turn this power play around is just moving him down the middle. That for me would be a huge change, and it would also give the Jets, an elite threat, scoring threat down the middle in the slot area on the power play, and maybe it'll even get him back in the mood to drive towards the slot when he's at even strength, which he's been doing a lot this year. So, for the Jets, it's more about the rest of the lines kind of getting penetration. I really don't have any questions about the first line, but the second through, fourth lines, can they crash that slot area and create offense? I think that would be a New Year's resolution worth pursuing, and one that the Jets hopefully can do internally before they have to request reinforcements. I think the other thing that I'm asking for is improved power play and PK structures. Now, the power play in the last game against the Bruins actually looked pretty decent. That's more of what I want, at least a little bit of movement to stretch the PK diamonds, get opponents guessing as to where you're passing to, create unpredictability, and actually make some passes in motion that stretches and opens up space, because that's how the Jets are going to punish teams, right? They don't have to shoot one-time opportunities with KFC to be really dangerous. This Jets team has more than enough firepower to upset the balance and create some great scoring chances. So for the Jets, keep the feet moving, keep overlapping, switching spots, rotating, and keeping defenders guessing, right? That's the biggest thing. And then for the PK, more aggression and pressure, I think would be great. Winnipeg's defensive style on the PK is often like starfishing across the slot area, which is not great, and also waiting for opponents to kind of drop in and either try for a lower percentage shot or, just playing the rebound, which I think for the PK is really not that great, actually, because oftentimes the Jets find themselves conceding anyways. Like a great, well-placed shot through traffic has often beat Hellebuck, and sometimes it's gone through cleanly, sometimes it's kind of deflected off of him. I just feel like the PK doesn't really do enough to disrupt shooting and passing lanes the way it should. So that, for me, those are like my two biggest New Year's resolutions. I think, anything else would really come through more like trades. And I trust Chevy to make a deal this time. I feel like this year he's been more aggressive, and I'm getting the sense that, based on what we've heard with him making trips and certainly fielding lots of scouts from other teams, the Jets are aware of what they need, and they're actually going to go after some kind of an acquisition. I don't know if it's going to be a top-end player, but I'm hoping for like a big Paul Stastny acquisition, because this team is giving me all of the same vibes as 2017, 2018, even though roster-wise we definitely have some deficiencies compared to that team. But that's okay, right? The Jets don't have to be as good as that team was, because that team still didn't get it done. And a worse Caps team actually did. You don't have to be the absolute best in every single category, but you do have to be as good as you can with the resources that you have. And I think that's where the Jets can really come away with a big win this year. I'm excited to see what they do towards the trade deadline or even before then. I think Winnipeg potentially has something special in store for us this year. I just keep feeling like something about the season feels different compared to the last several ones. Even compared to Bones' first season, there's just something about this team that does really feel like it's coming together. And, so far, with the goaltending being great, the defensive dominance on display, and a first line that can quite frankly eviscerate anyone, I'm feeling pretty confident in this team. Let me know how you're feeling about the upcoming games and about the rest of the second half of the season. Drop your thoughts below or at my social medias at HLivingLoco and at LO_Winnipeg Jets. For tonight's episode, though, that is going to be all the time that we have. Thanks so much for making Locked On Jets your first listen of the day. As always, we will have a report on this Chicago Blackhawks game from this evening on tomorrow's episode, so don't go anywhere. Have a great night. Be sure to subscribe, and as always, go Jets go.